He is one of the most dynamic receivers to ever play for the Georgia Bulldogs, and now George Pickens is in the NFL draft process. I'm Dayne Young from UGAsports.com. That is my co-author for Film Don't Lie, Brent Rollins. He also works with Pro Football Focus. This is a part of our NFL preview series as Georgia players are heading into the NFL draft. George Pickens was special at Georgia, Brent, but unfortunately for Bulldog fans, it feels like a bit robbed from the experience of seeing him for a total of 3 years. An ACL injury leading into his junior season really impacted that, and then also a pandemic the year before.
Yeah, and it's an injury the previous season in 2020 where he missed a couple games, and you really only saw him at the end of the year, a little bit at the beginning, and then at the end of the year. And I think that's probably the best way to describe him is that dynamic. 100% dynamic from the moment he stepped on campus, and that video got leaked of him in a practice where he made the one-handed catch that I saw Roddy post this week during this past week during the combine. But it's one of those what could have been because of the injury, because of the team that they had, the complete team that they had in 2021. It would have been nice to see him the entirety of the season, but outside of that, he was never not interesting, whether that be on the field in certain instances or even on the sideline.
Are you talking about when he threw a Georgia Tech guy into the wall? Is that what you're talking about, or the water bottle?
Or the water bottle. I mean, one of the things that no matter what with him, we're going to show some things. Hey, he might not have been the best blocker. He might not be the most crisp route runner. But that dude, you can tell, loves to play football and loves to compete. And that sort of bit from him, that just sort of, hey, I'm always going to be in your face competing and trying to be that. You could just always see it. And he definitely has a flair for the dramatic. And we're going to see that early on in the clips that we have.
Listed at 6'3", 200 pounds on the official UGA roster. As we're recording this, he just wrapped up the NFL Combine. We noticed Brent in some of the measurements, smaller hands than we probably expected, because when you saw some of the catches that he made, the catch radius that he has never became a problem for him. So what would be a red flag for some other players with less production may not end up being that for him, though I do know that some NFL folks do get caught up in those measurements.
Yeah, very much so. And it was a little shocking to see, but, it was never – and we're going to see, and I think you'd probably see it across the ticker. Drops were not an issue for him, and holding the ball was not an issue for him. So, in the clips that we have, he's a big-time playmaker. He is that, and he worked his tail off and got back and played in the SEC championship game and then played in the playoffs and the national championship game. And it was – great. And he contributed big time. And the first play we see is just that, catching the national championship game.
Yeah. So you had this observation on Twitter. There were two plays here and from two different quarterbacks in 2 different years that we're seeing. So I'll just play this and kind of let you explain why these two plays resonated with you for being so similar.
It literally looked like deja vu. The toss, the footwork, the ball placement, I mean, almost the same play, the catch and the yard line and the throw were almost the exact same. Now, they didn't have the revert like in the national championship. You had the reverse action with Bowers that you didn't have there. But just two phenomenal, his flair for the dramatic, making the diving catch and getting the outstretched hands, and his ability to catch, secure, and then turn and make sure the ground doesn't cause the ball to get dislodged. Phenomenal.
The angle's so good too, because it shows you how good he tracks the football. We talk about his catch radius when he has a shoulder to the quarterback and when he's faced up to the quarterback, that he can really block off a defender and make any catch. But when he's trailing underneath the ball and tracking it down the field, as good as any I've seen at Georgia in a long time.
Yeah, and I think that's when you think about his elite skill, the speed. Like I thought he'd run high 4.4s, right around 4.5. Ran, I think it was a 4.47. Really good time for him. He's never been he's not Arian Smith. from a speed perspective, but his ability to track the ball, like you said, it is next level. Like AJ Green is really the only other guy to me that you think about that has that frame and ability, but he did it in a little bit different way. Pickens just did it in such a kind of flair and a little bit of something about him way. And this is one where third down against Auburn at the top of the screen. I'm pretty sure that's McCreary that he's one-on-one against, and he just absolutely torches him.
Just a quick hitch throw. Stetson Bennett puts it on the money. And then you do have the celebration, which at the time I kept thinking of the guard in the Michael Jordan documentary that did the same stance.
Oh, yes. The security guard.
Yeah, yes. The security guard. And that became a meme on Twitter after. But like you said, this is just a perfect route, perfect throw, yep. And then he tracked it to the spot.
And he wins with footwork. He wins with a little bit of hand placement, but not too much. But it's just really, really quick and great footwork. And this is where he excels, is winning the one-on-one battles on the outside.
By this point, when this is happening for George Pickens, and this was the 2020 season, yep. By this point, if he was one-on-one, then that's a win for Georgia.
Yep, and you're going to him consistently. And this, we got in the middle of that 2020 season, he kind of got some nagging injuries. I forget exactly what it was that he had injury perspective. And then he didn't come back until the Mississippi State game and then finished those final 4 games with JT Daniels. But, he was making – you think about what he did as a freshman where he had, almost, a little over 700 yards, 8 touchdowns as a freshman. And then these first couple games making the plays that he made against Arkansas and then Auburn. You thought, all right, big-time season. This is – just the ascension of him moving forward. But, we just didn't get to see as much of it after that. But still yet playmaking ability on the outside. And this is, what teams are going to look at as they evaluate him as a draft prospect.
This play against Arkansas, first play of the 2020 season, feels like ancient history at this point. But this is Stetson Bennett coming in to save the day for Dwan Mathis and finding really a nice zip pass to George Pickens.
Yep, and Pickens does. And what's interesting about this play is the entirety of his career, he averaged just a little over 3 yards after the catch per reception. Like he wasn't because of his contested catch ability. He wasn't really the yards after catch. He wasn't really that guy, only in certain instances. But he was once here, nose for the end zone. And we talk about the hands, like he's got the ball in one hand right there when he scores. So, this is just, I think that's probably the nose for the end zone part of it. He has that above anything else.
This was a little bit before his reputation was fully solidified, though I think people knew what he could do. He didn't see this level of space much more.
No.
Because when he had that degree of space in front of him, he really burned guys.
When you think about even just back to the 2019 season with Jake Fromm, it wasn't really he had big games, but it wasn't really until the massive game that he had in the bowl game that it's just like, here it is. We saw the great catches, we saw the touchdowns, but the game he had against Baylor in the bowl game kind of solidified him moving forward as, hey, this is a guy, he was a top 10 recruit, 5-star recruit. So this is a guy moving forward we got to keep an eye on. But again, we didn't get to see it. And then here he finally comes back the last 4 games with JT Daniels at quarterback.
Here he is against South Carolina. And as you mentioned with Daniels at quarterback.
And this is where he above all else. And like you said, one of the best in Georgia history, one of the best I've ever seen at the ability to contort his body and find a way to make the catch. There was this one, there was 2 or 3 different ones against Missouri. And I know the long touchdown he had against Missouri with Daniels at QB, where he's just maneuvering in ways that you think aren't really possible and just very slithery in a way. But here, just the jump and the timing and being physical at the catch point, he's only 200 pounds, but still he's always physical at the catch point and a true contested catch guy.
You had mentioned Jake Fromm. He did play with him, and this is the 2019 SEC Championship.
against possible first-round pick, or likely first-round pick, I would say, Derek Stingley Jr., who had an absolute whale of a game in that game. But that catch is unreal. I can't. One, the ball is put at a place where only him, and I would say only him, not necessarily only him as in a receiver, only him as in Pickens can catch that ball. And to be able to turn around like that, the concentration, getting one, and I think he even got the second foot down.
Good.
Yeah. Like that's, you just talking about unreal ability. And you know what's interesting when you talk about receivers and look at receivers, and you hear the NFL and scout guys and the guys on TV, they always talk about, can he create separation? Where's the separation? Well, you create separation in various ways, right? You can be physical at the line of scrimmage or insanely quick at the line of scrimmage and create your separation there. You can be just crazy fast. You can be Arian Smith level fast, and as you get going, you just outrun guys and create separation there. You can be a precision route runner, and your footwork and your in and out, your Devontae Smiths of the world, in and out of the breaks. That's where you create the separation. Or you can be like Pickens and be elite at creating separation at the catch point. And, one of the guys who's going to be picked high in terms of receivers, Drake London from USC, similar kind of role where he creates his separation at the catch point, which you think about that in the NFL, it might be a little more kind of less replicable or harder to do. But when you do it at this level and the elite level that Pickens has done it for the time period that he's done, it's hard to not see that he's going to be able to do that in the league too.
So that's all the great things that he can do. What can he work on? What are the things that may cost him a little bit as he moves to the pro level? And we see this in this play against Auburn.
I will say this. He was always a willing blocker, and he did a really good job and would, kind of go viral every now and then on Twitter with, focused in, and he, act like he's going to route and then completely punk a guy. And he was always, like I said, always a willing blocker, but he just wasn't good at it. It's not something that he
not
did
consistently.
really well. No,
he could do it sometimes, but yet consistently, he would get the leverage in the wrong place and find himself on the ground or out of the play.
And you think about him as a player, and you watch him as a player, and his ability to just go almost kind of a kamikaze style. Hey, I'm going to go move my body and contort it in ways that isn't usually normally possible for humans. That's not what translates to success in perimeter blocking. Perimeter blocking is about being calm with your feet and not necessarily striking, heavily someone. And that's not what he's always been about. It's more about positioning and leverage and angles, whereas he's more, just a physical super freak, and that's just not his thing. So it's obviously something that he's got to work on as he gets into the NFL.
And typically, catching the football is not, but we had to scrape the tape pretty hard to find a drop for George Pickens, but it does happen.
It only happened twice in his career. Not this past year in 2021. Like you think about in the playoff game against Michigan, I think it was a third down play that Stetson put the ball on him, but the corner was draped all over him, and he still finds a way to make that catch. Against Alabama in the SEC championship game, found a way to make a catch with guys draped all over him. Here he gets going, hey, I need to get a first down before I actually have the ball. And this is only one of his two drops. And I think as you see along the ticker there, 90 of 97 catchable, what we at PFF deem catchable passes, he caught. That's next level. Only two drops, next level.
It's also why I think that George Pickens is a steal in this NFL draft. And I think even if he went late first round, I would still say that because NFL quarterbacks are so accurate, typically, not always, but most of the time when you get to that level and stay there, you're so accurate and you're so good about getting the ball to a spot. If he catches those, then he'll be in the league for a long time.
Yep. And you also think in terms of where does he end up? And we had this discussion on our show after the combine, but where does he end up? To me, he ends. I think it's like 46th. I didn't look at the draft order to be certain, but it's in the right around the mid 40s. And there's a team where it's kind of the 180-degree point from the one you just made, in that you see so many QBs with precision, pinpoint accuracy. Who doesn't have that? Who has an electric QB that's elite and it has an elite level arm, but isn't always the most accurate?
You going Lamar?
The Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
In the mid-40s. He is perfect for Lamar Jackson. Just get it in the vicinity, Lamar. Do your thing. Put the zip on it. Get it in the vicinity of Pickens, and he's going to come down with the ball.
I would say something similar, though, to not the same degree. For if the Saints run it back with Jameis Winston, I think there's a bit of that where Jameis can get the ball across the field now. He could be in traffic.
Yes.
So there's some of that. Maybe Pickens can bail him out from some INTs. The other team that my game of just like, oh, what does this guy feel like? I think George Pickens kind of feels like a San Francisco 49er to me.
I thought you were going to say the Raiders, by the way, but
I mean, they always take a guy that can run a 4.3, right? That's historically what their family did. No, and maybe it's just a uniform jersey thing that I do. For some reason, I felt like I could see George Pickens and Trey Lance doing some cool stuff out in San Francisco with Shanahan.
And he's a big arm guy, maybe not necessarily the most accurate yet. I think you think about that young QBs. And a lot of these young QBs who maybe aren't, the most accurate yet. Or precision with everything that they do. They're not, the Brady's, the Rodgers, the Russell Wilsons of the world who are just pinpoint accuracy all over the place. That's good spots for him. But like I said, I don't think he gets past Baltimore at 45 or 6 or whatever it is that they're drafting. I think that's one guy for them because to me, their entirety is one, drafting great athletes, but also two, building around Lamar. And how do you build around Lamar? Is you keep getting a stable of running backs, and you also keep getting him guys, either one tight ends or two contested catch guys on the outside.
It is a copycat league, and so I think when you see how the Bengals just transformed what they were doing as a franchise with Burrow and then getting Jamar Chase paired with him, it's almost at the point now that if you can find really a couple of receivers, but especially that first and second receiver to complement your quarterback, it's as valuable as a left tackle. It's as valuable as a great center that you need to have that receiver that can bail you out of things. Can George Pickens be that? I don't know. There's going to be receivers drafted ahead of him in the NFL draft, but I don't see many players in this draft that have a ceiling at receiver higher than what Pickens can be. Can he get out of his own way with some things? Can he stay healthy? I think those are the two big things on him.
Another team too, when you think about and just who is he as a pro, and another guy that he I feel like his career could be like, where not necessarily as dynamic, but a really great, just phenomenal number 2 guy is Odell. Like I don't think Odell is a true number 1 because 1, he can't stay healthy, and 2, just all the things that come with being the number 1 guy. He just didn't. He wasn't great in that role. He's always been really, really great as an elite number 2. And where does Odell just play? His last season in LA with the Rams. And that could be, if the Rams, because they never have first round picks, if he falls into the late second round with the Rams, I think they have their second round pick. That would be to me another team that, with elite arm quarterback, guy that can go get it, a great offensive play designer, play caller in McVay. That's another spot for him. But like I said, I think Baltimore is one I'm going to almost pick that he gets picked in the middle of the second round by the Ravens, if not earlier.
Well, and you say that being a number 2 wide receiver, a lot of players have made a great career. Emmanuel Sanders, I think of a guy like him, been a number 2 or 3 receiver his whole career, but he's done it for a long time. You can make a long career being a 2 or 3 receiver. And so even if it doesn't get to be a 1 somewhere, you can do some great things in the NFL receiver. And especially now as everyone's trying to build out, and I think receivers are more valuable than ever. That's our look at George Pickens. Any final thoughts?
Just that you think about there was every incentive for him to not work his tail off to come back and play this year. Mm-hmm. And he did. Now, granted, that just goes to show how ridiculous ACL repairs and how good they are. And I think it was just his ACL. And I mean, he was he was such a high level athlete. But for me, like I saw a high school kid, one of local high school kid who had torn his ACL in December, I think. And then August was ready to play. So I thought all along that he was going to play if he wanted to.
It's an important point to make, though, because I do think that people see what he did against Georgia Tech, throwing a player into the wall with the water bottle on the sideline in another game, and they say he's got character issues. No. That's not character. That's probably immaturity more than anything else. Those are two totally different things. George Pickens showed his character by staying with the team and trying to come back and help them win a championship, and they did, and he did. And so he didn't have off-the-field legal concerns or anything like that. He's a guy that likes to have fun and probably sometimes in a little more of an immature way. But I think over the last year, he's proven he can be a professional.
Yep, 100%. Like that, for him to work like he did and get back and play and be successful, that was very professional in a way of him. And
it just bothers me when those things get like crossed over in this like hyper analyzation of like, well, there's character concern. There's not a character concern with George Pickens. This dude showed up and he worked hard. Is there a maturity concern? For some people, yeah. But I promise you, some of these coaches that he plays for are just as immature as he is in that sense. And they'll drop a D's nuts joke. Like Brian Dable's the NFL head coach. I mean, come on. Just say it. Yeah. All right, we're getting off the rails here. That's our look at George Pickens for the NFL draft. We'll have more of these coming up on UGAsports.com. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel here as we continue churning out content in the offseason for the National Championship Georgia Bulldogs. For Brent Rollins,